Hello, I'm Passive J, and this is OtherGround Live. All right, folks, this is another edition of OtherGround Live. As I mentioned, I'm Passive J. My co-host, as always, is Ryan. And as always, for some strange reason, this program will not let me start it with him, so he has to log in. So we'll give him a moment. In the meantime, I'm more than happy to say we have a special guest coming on. I'm not going to ruin it. It'll be a surprise. Hopefully, it should be on soon. All right. We really need to work on our timing for this. I'm glad to see that we have plenty of people listening today. You can call in on your Podbean app if you like. We're always taking random callers, guests, anything like that. And he's still not on. This is awkward. All right. I see. Oh, we're already up to quite a few people. Glad to see you guys are all here. I appreciate the support. Let me go look on Facebook and see why he's not on yet. I apologize for the dead air. Like I said, this is a new podcast, so it's going to take a little while for us to get all of our stuff together. But in the meantime, is there anything you guys would like to? Oh, I think I see our special guest. Feel free to hit the call-in button, sir, and we will go ahead and get started. Well, I would like to welcome special guest, MMA legend, Pat Miletich.
How you doing, guys?
I am excellent. Looks like my co-host just managed to join us as well. So, Pat, this is Ryan over here, and I'm Jay.
Ryan and Jay, awesome, man. Great to be on with you. I haven't. I tell you what, the Underground Forum, man. What a legendary platform to be using, right?
Yeah, no kidding. So many people over the years have been on there. It's an amazing place. And we really appreciate you coming on and doing the show with us. This is only our second show, so it's nice to get a jump start like this.
Yeah, man. No, this is it's cool that you guys are doing an OtherGround also.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, nowadays the OtherGround's kind of bigger than the Underground is.
I wouldn't doubt it, given all the geopolitical, domestic politics and all the crazy shit going on, right?
Right, no kidding.
We're just kind of if you think about it, right, we're just kind of the foul-mouthed little brother. So we're definitely the ones with all the terrible takes.
Yeah, that's good, man. That's good.
Yeah. Now, is there anything you want to specifically talk about today?
You guys can. Hey, look, you guys can talk about anything. I mean, I host obviously the Conspiracy Farm, which is we've been doing that since a year, the year before Trump became president. So over 4 years, I guess, and we've built a really good grassroots following, and never really had any money behind us or anything like that, and it's grown and exploded, and we've got listeners in over 110 countries or something like that. So we're having a blast with it, and so I can rap with you about a lot of things. I mean, we can talk about current affairs, we can talk about all kinds of stuff, things, MMA, I don't know, anything.
Nice. And if we run out of stuff to talk about, we can also have the ability to have people call in to ask you questions and stuff.
Yeah, that's kick ass. I love it.
Excellent. Well, since we were already talking about that, what got you?
I had wanted to for a long time, and I had always, since I was a young kid, and this is why I went into the conspiratorial world and geopolitics and domestic policy. I mean, I was the little kid sitting on the living room floor when I was 6 years old, listening to Walter Cronkite and wondering, what the hell was going on in the world, right? But when I was about that age, my grandmother and my mother got me up very early in the morning when I was down on the farm in Albia, Iowa, and outside of Albia, and they drugged me into town, and everything was urgent. And we stood in line. We were one of the first people to get in line at the Farmers National Bank in Albia, Iowa, when the farm collapse was happening. And my grandmother, there was a rush on the banks, basically. And the run on the banks is something that is heard about by many people. They've read about them, things like that. But I actually experienced one when I was 6 years old. And so we were standing in line at the Farmers National Bank waiting for it to open for my grandmother to get her money out. And the line for farmers to get their money out went down the street, around the block. I mean, it was farmers from all over that south central Iowa area. And my grandmother was one of the first in there. She got, if I remember right around $90,000 in 1971 after Nixon took us off the gold standard, and things kind of went to shit for a while there. So that I think it just opened up my mind, because I was asking my mother and my grandmother, what the hell's going on? Why are we doing this? What, and I could sense the urgency in the air. So that, I wanted to talk because I got sick of listening to the news. I've trained law enforcement and military for a lot of years. I've got a lot of friends in the intelligence world, and I got so sick of the news not telling us the truth that I asked my co-host Jeffrey Wilson when I was on his podcast. I said, "Hey man, I've got this idea. I want to call it the Conspiracy Farm." The tagline, all that stuff, was we don't start the conspiracies, we just add the water. And he's a very talented guy. He's a voiceover actor. He's also very intelligent and wise to a lot of the shit that's going on in the world. And he said, "Man, I love it. Let's do it." So we started doing it over 4 years ago, and been having a blast with it.
Excellent. Well, in that same vein, being a podcaster myself, this is something I always think about. Who would be your perfect guest? Like, if you could pick any one person to have on your show.
Dude, I tell you what, man, I got lucky. I wrote an email to Peter Schiff. Peter Schiff was the economist that called the 2008 collapse. I watched him live and I've always been a fan of his. He's a gold and silver guy and an economist. But he called the 2008 collapse before it happened. He was live on CNN with two other economists, and they literally were laughing in his face when he was calling the housing collapse. And he called it almost to the day how long it was going to be before it happened. And so I wrote a letter. I told him that story of how I got started in the world of just opening my brain up with that Farmers National Bank story. And he went, "Dude, how can I not be on your show?" So look up Peter Schiff and look up his Twitter page, and read what he's writing about what's going on now. And I think it's slightly ominous. Let's put it that way.
So you kind of already got your dream guest already, huh?
Yeah, and we've had a variety of people. I mean, former assistant director of the FBI, and also he was a bigwig in the CIA, counterterrorism. Dave Zadie, who was part of the WAMA group. Remember, he was the guy that was the CEO of that, and we almost pulled that off. I've had some amazing guests from the special warfare community. Sonny Puzikas is going to be on later tonight. He's a former Spetsnaz terrorist hunter. He was Russian special forces when the Soviet Union fell apart. He lives in the United States now. He trains people in tactical stuff, weapons, and very, very bright guy though.
Excellent. Yeah, that's something I think I should probably be looking into since I have very, very little athletic ability. I should probably get some kind of training at some point, especially the way things.
Well, things are, this is uncharted territory for everybody, right? I mean, even I think besides a guy like Peter Schiff, who's going to go out on a limb and basically say, this is going to get ugly. People don't understand anything about, what a derivative is, and they don't know anything about the derivative bubble, or the derivative bubble being $1.5 quadrillion, which is 4 times the size of the entire planet's economy. And that's all leveraged on everything that basically every goods and products and mortgages and all kinds of stuff. They're talking about something that alarmed me. And look, I got punched in the head for a living. I'm smart enough to figure this out. They're talking about giving year moratorium, a suspension for mortgage payments. And the banks can't handle that. I'm sure the banks have insurance, but that's gonna cause the derivatives bubble to pop. If that derivatives bubble pops, which is just a matter of time, and that's probably going to be the thing that causes it. I don't know. Are we eating our cats?
Right. Yeah, I can see that. I don't have any knowledge on any of that kind of stuff, but I do know that the money has to come from someplace eventually. It's not going to materialize out of no place. Someone eventually is going to.
Yeah,
And really,
you know,
we've been headed here, right? So like even without everything that's going on right now, like we've been headed to kind of a bubble bursting anyhow. So
yeah. I mean, when you
this
look
whole
at
coronavirus and everything has been kind of fortuitous in a way, right?
right, and so you know, there's some guys that are writing QAnon, things like that. I think that Q has been right on many things, but also the timeline hasn't made sense. I don't buy into 100% of what anybody's saying. To be honest with you, I'm trying to take bits and pieces of information from everyone, and so that's something that people need to remember. But you know, yes, as far as we've been headed there for a long time, Deutsche Bank's been circling the drain for a long time. Wells Fargo's been circling the drain for a long time. You know, the CEO of Deutsche Bank, gosh, what was it, a month ago or 2 months? He basically said that the Federal Reserve and the European Central Bank literally have no more options when things go upside down. And, you know, they just put in what, a $2 trillion stimulus. They're looking at another $1 or $2 trillion stimulus. The dollar's going to be worth nothing. I mean, you think China's going to sell us anything when we don't have a currency that's worth a shit? So it's very we're in a very precarious situation, and things, like I said, I don't know how it turns out, but I don't think it turns out great unless no matter how you feel about Trump, he's hinted around for probably 4 years, even before he was president, that he would kill the Federal Reserve, and if he kills the Fed and creates a treasury note that's backed by precious metals, then hey, man, and yeah, somebody just said gold to become gold standard is hinted, yes, and so you know, I'm hoping that's the case, you know, that and that would, I mean, that frees us from the globalist bankers, right?
I am in way over my head here, but hopefully Ryan's fine.
Yeah, for the most part, I think you're definitely making some good points there, and it's just an interesting time to be alive with the whole pandemic coming across and how much you can kind of hide with that event as far as some of the things they're doing monetarily. Also, just to kind of
spot on. You really are. You're going down the right path with that. In my mind, I mean, there have been many other pandemics that have caused an awful lot of death. The flu every year kills what, an average of 500,000 people, and they don't make us lock down for that. And so, I would say that this is the camo jacket over the top of a deliberate economic collapse and rebuilding. So, I think that that's really kind of where what's going on, because it just and think of the moral question you have to ask yourself: do we keep people working and keep the economy going, even if there was no planned economic collapse? Keep people working, keep the economy churning along, and you know, the people that are susceptible to these types of viruses are going to die. People with pre-existing conditions, many of whom probably didn't take care of themselves real well, but certainly there's going to be a lot of innocent collateral damage in that. Or do we collapse the entire system, and people are, I mean, in speaking with several politicians that are friends of mine, one U.S. congressman, he said, Pat, and you won't have to look far for who it is. He's an MIT scientist. His wife's also an MIT scientist. They're not dumb people. He said, Pat, more people will commit suicide from the economic collapse than this virus would have ever taken. Just suicides alone.
That's interesting that you say that. I was actually just having a conversation with somebody about this today. Obviously, I don't want people to die, and what they're doing is going to prevent some people from dying that would have otherwise. On the other hand, the economic damage that they're doing is probably like my numbers are going to be made up, but let's say 5,000 people are going to die if they do this. 15,000 people are going to die if they don't do this. well, obviously we don't want 10,000 extra people to die, but on the other hand, 500,000 people might lose their house because of this. I mean,
a lot more than 500,000 are going to lose their house, brother.
Right. Like, I'm just spitting numbers out, but that's what I'm saying. At what point is the economic damage that we're doing, too much?
Yeah, and how behind the eight ball are we going to be then to try and it'll come roaring back. But I mean, look, I'm sitting here saying to myself, well, shit, I've got connections in Croatia. I've got an FFL. I can sell guns. Hey, I'm going to call my Croatian cousins over there and say, send me a shipping container full of AK-47s, and I'm going to sit in my backyard and sell them for gold and silver. I'm going to sit in a lawn chair next to it and just sell them straight out of that son of a bitch. I mean, that's what's going to happen. That's what happened in Russia when the Soviet Union split up. Everybody, it was a black market, Wild West. Billionaires were created out of that stuff.
Right. And one of the things I've always wondered about is some people are like stocking months and months and months worth of food. Like, you got to have 6 months worth of food. You have to have a year's worth of food. And I'm telling them, well, extra food is certainly not a bad idea. If you can't get food from a supermarket for 6 months, we're going to be way past worrying about how much food you have in your basement. Or there's going to be mobs of people going door to door, killing people and stealing all their stuff. And at that point, it doesn't matter how many boxes of Cheerios you have.
Well, and that's the thing. People need to remember that no matter what the government tells you, do not give up your guns. No matter what they say, do not give up your guns. That's they are going to stomp all over civil liberties, the Constitution. If you thought it was getting its, people were wiping their ass with it with the NDAA and the Patriot Act and everything else. The DOJ just asked a judge ask a judge for special permission, and they did this quietly. People can look this up and read about it, where they can also detain people indefinitely without any trial, without charges, without them being able to even call their loved ones or their attorneys. You will just disappear. And so
that's a scary one.
Scary stuff. And that's not tinfoil hat stuff. That's a fact. That is a fact.
Yeah, that's out there right now, and I've read up on that one a little bit as well. And the crazy thing about that, right, is like their argument of being able to, like access judges and actually get these things heard is now, pushed back because of Corona. But I mean, we've had teleconference availability for decades, so they're just trying to hide these things.
Right. Yeah, they're definitely not. Yeah, I think Freedom of Information Act and a few other. There's some groups that are able to get this info out to the public, But then again, how long does there's threats of the internet getting shut down, and so we can't communicate and things like that. So you never know, But I will say this: when all of a sudden governors and different mayors start shutting down, forcing gun stores to close, no more sales of ammo and guns, no more sales of booze, this and that. That should be an indication that something's coming where they're going to be a little worried about citizens being pissed off at them, right?
Yeah, we're definitely getting there.
When they say, yeah, you can't sell any more ammo or guns, I mean, and I'm sure you guys have been to the grocery stores, stuff's flying off the shelves, canned goods, all that sort of stuff. And same thing with ammo and guns. And, what's a beautiful thing is between Jeffrey Epstein getting whacked or not getting whacked, disappearing because he was Israeli Mossad.
Well, I'm pretty much the least conspiracy theory person in the world, and I think somebody killed him.
Well, here's the thing. I don't think he's dead. I think he's more than free. Like I said, that was certainly a Mossad operation to.
You mean in the other direction? Yeah, I can definitely agree that whatever happened there is not what happened there.
Yeah, no, he didn't. He certainly didn't hang himself. So between that and what's going on now, and all of a sudden, people who never desired to own a gun are suddenly gun shopping, and I hear it from a lot of people who run gun stores are going, yeah, these people who don't know anything about guns and they just know that they fucking need one now.
Yeah, and it's in the big centers too now, as far as population center, right? Like I grew up in Iowa as well, so everybody had a gun, everybody knew how to use one. Now
Right.
I'm up in New England, and like you see the kind of worry in people's faces that never even knew, that they had a need, that now have a need.
Well, I own a shotgun, but I'll be honest with you, I've never fired it. I got it because my wife apparently liked having one in the house. She grew up with a firearm in the house, as did I. I mean, I grew up with my family owning firearms. I just never had much interest in them. But I'm sure glad.
Yeah, and it's handguns, ARs, shotguns. They all serve a different purpose. They all do the job. You just gotta. I would say you should probably go familiarize yourself with it, and do some practice target shooting and get some buckshot so you can put it through your front door if somebody's trying to get in, right?
Oh, most certainly. Yeah, that's definitely going to be on the schedule probably within the next day or two because things are just feeling.
Yeah, it's. Sorry, I'm closing the blinds in my office here. The sun's blaring right into my eyes. But so what? Wait a minute. Sorry to change the subject. What part of Iowa did you grow up in?
So I grew up in a small town of about 5,200. Just about a half hour north of Ames.
Okay, what's the name of the town?
So it was Iowa Falls.
Yeah. So how old are you? Sorry to ask.
So I am 37. So actually, that time that you were kind of talking about the story you were going through there, I had a grandfather that lived just outside of town, a smaller town called Alden, and he kind of did all of the construction in that area. So even if you drive through today, about 80% of those houses were built by my family.
So I have a good friend from Iowa Falls named Jeff Lindeman. Are you familiar with the Lindeman family?
Absolutely. That was my first job, was working for the Lindemans out there, kind of going through the cornfields.
The monument business?
No. So outside of that, they had kind of just summer work. And that was pretty much everyone from I would say age 12 to 16. That was all of our first jobs, was kind of working out in some of the local farm fields.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Yeah. So he's a good friend of mine. He lives here in my hometown of Bettendorf now. Moved down here. So, the things are getting a little bit interesting. National Guard getting sent out everywhere. I saw pictures of. I don't know if you guys have seen the footage of Hummers traveling everywhere, all around the country, lines of them. Now I'm starting to get pictures of, and it's funny because people were saying, the National Guard is just being sent out to assist with the testing sites. And I said, okay, that's great. But maybe you can explain now why there's Bradley fighting vehicles and M1 Abrams in the streets. In places.
Well, for testing, they're testing something. I'm sure of it.
So Z Onion says, someone say tits or fuck or something. It's kind of nice that I can read the questions with you guys.
Yeah. Well, this is the OG. They're expecting something a little bit more lowbrow today.
Oh yeah. So hey, we gotta.
Oh, well, I got a question for you, sir. I was looking through your Wikipedia earlier because I knew I might be talking to you, and I noticed that you have black belts in several disciplines.
Yeah.
Which one are you most proud of?
You know what? To be honest with you, I'm probably most proud that I survived Pena's boxing gym. I donated a lot of blood down there, but the Shoreiru karate was a great eye-opening experience. It's an Okinawan art, and it really taught me distance really, really well. That safety zone and understanding, defense, not getting touched. I'm lucky that I had a lot of great coaches, from Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu to wrestling to boxing to a lot of combatives in general. But that art there probably taught me the most in terms of distance and understanding it for kicks and punches, and then just getting the shit kicked out of me for a long time until I could hang down at Pena's boxing gym in downtown Davenport. That's where Antoine Eccles, Michael Nunn, a lot of those guys came out of. Once I got to where I could hang down there, I felt pretty good that nobody was in MMA was going to be able to hurt me standing up anyway. And it rang true. I mean, I've never had in kickboxing, in boxing, and in mixed martial arts. I even training, I never had a concussion, never got knocked out. I got a TKO on my record in MMA because I got trapped underneath Lynn when I couldn't get out. But besides that, there's no. I never had a headache from sparring or anything like that. So I'm pretty lucky with that. So to be able to come out and still be able to hold a conversation like we're holding, I guess, and be able to speak and spell, that's a good thing, because I noticed a lot of the old kickboxers and boxers, when I first started training many years ago, obviously, I noticed that those guys really weren't there. Very vacant looks in their eyes a lot of times, from just taking too much punishment. So I paid attention to that and really worked on my defensive skills. So.
Oh, excellent. Let's see. Ryan, you got anything you want to ask him? I don't want to feel like I'm taking over the whole show.
Yeah, absolutely. So actually, when you were kind of talking about Michael Nunn, you actually had a fight coming up that got moved due to Corona, didn't you?
Not due to Corona. We had to move it back to June 6th because there was a conflicting event in May that we were initially going to go in April. We couldn't get some of the testing done in time to get it approved, which it would have been canceled anyway. And then we moved it back to May, where there was a conflicting date for the athletic commission. So it got moved back to June 6th. So I'm hopeful that we can still pull it off June 6th, and the world awakens and opens its doors and comes out into the sunshine, and everybody can start making a lot of money, and the economy can rebound, hopefully, and Michael and I can get it on and have a good time. He's allowing me to kick, and if it was a boxing match, I don't know how sharp his skills are these days, but I can say if he's a quarter of what he was when he was the best pound for pound boxer in the world, he's still going to be awfully tough to touch in a boxing match. He's that good with his head movement and his reach. He's a southpaw with ungodly reach, and he's 6'2". So he's allowing me to kick. So we're going to have a good time and put on a show for the crowd. We're both from the Iowa Quad Cities, and so we think that we can fill an arena, and there's going to be a lot of very talented young guys on the undercard that are not getting enough attention, and hopefully this will be a good platform for them. And I'm launching we've already done one test run with internet pay-per-view. We did that after Access TV stopped. They just basically fired everybody in the MMA department, and so I licked my wounds for about a week, going, what the hell just happened? And then I talked to some of my friends here in the Quad Cities, and I said, hey, man, do you think we can put together a quick internet pay-per-view for the local MMA show and see if we can do this? And I think it took us 5 weeks to be able to figure it out and have the equipment and everything we needed to pull off our own internet pay-per-view. And so we're going to continue to fine-tune it, and we're going to use that internet pay-per-view for the fights that the night Michael Nunn and I are going to fight. So.
That's pretty cool. That's one of the things I like about technology today. Is you couldn't do that 20 years ago. Your options were cable for pay-per-view, and that was it.
Yeah, now, no, they had the market cornered on all that stuff, and all us little guys were pushed out, right? So not anymore. It's a great thing. And somebody asked a question here. Pundit asked. I don't like to leave people hanging. I apologize. He asked, what is the biggest physical detriment to aging fighters, knees, back, mind, etc.? What will folks be faced with the most? Well, I can say that cervical spine injuries are really prevalent in mixed martial arts. And certainly as aging fighters continue to get older, you're going to notice a lot more CTE and things like that. I know of some fighters that are even quite a bit younger than I am who have some pretty severe dementia and some CTE issues and things like that. So it's not a joke. It's not a joke. I mean, it's obviously a rough sport. So guys are going to have lasting issues from that. So.
Jeez, that anything that has to do with the brain is always scary, because I saw my mom ended up having dementias and stuff like that toward the end, and I don't wish that on anybody. That's just some scary.
Yeah, my wife's father passed away from that, and it was a rough one, and it's very sad because he was a very intelligent guy. He was a self-made man, and started from scratch and became a multimillionaire just through hard work and being a really good businessman. And he was just, it just reduced him to almost a childlike existence, which was very, very unfortunate. So,
Yeah, but I can totally understand why fighters keep on doing it. I mean, you see it over and over again. When they win, they feel like they can keep winning, and when they lose, well, you don't want to retire in a loss. So it's just the process keeps on recycling over.
right. And to be honest with you, I mean, I don't even really desire to get. I never really missed fighting at all. I missed the camaraderie, the intensity of the training, a lot of that sort of stuff. But I didn't. I never really, I accomplished what I wanted to and was able to walk away. And people have asked me that a lot. Do you miss fighting? I have no problem saying absolutely not at all. Don't miss it at all. But a guy like Michael Nunn, the uniqueness of this fight, the fact we're both from this area, I think it'll be pretty cool, pretty fun to do.
Well, I mean, obviously it's going to be dangerous, but compared to like the MMA fights that you've done, this kind of thing, it's kind of like not even really a fight. I mean, obviously it's a fight, but you're used to something way more dangerous.
Well, with the fact I can't use takedowns and submissions on a guy like Michael Nunn, it's a bit of a roll of the dice considering his skill set. But you know what? He's never been kicked before. He's never felt a heater shin bone to his quad before.
Right. And obviously, I don't mean to disparage that guy. He's a world-class athlete. I just figured with your ability to kick him, it would probably give him problems.
Yeah, and at the same time, I'm not going to blow smoke up my own ass, and one punch from him can put me to sleep, even though I've never been knocked out or had a concussion. I'm well aware of his ability to turn my lights out. So that's the thing. It's a roll of the dice for both of us, and that's what makes it interesting. I think you know what I mean. It's a big unknown how we're going to match up.
Right. That'd be super duper interesting. Where can we watch it? I mean, well, you said you don't have a date for it yet, but how are we going to be able to watch it? What pay-per-view service are you using and all that good stuff?
Well, we'll put out all that information. Once tickets start going up for sale and all that sort of stuff, we'll definitely release that. The only thing is, we don't know how long this coronavirus quarantine shit's going to last, man. They could extend this thing for a long time, depending on how long they need to do to the economy what they need to do in the monetary system, right?
Oh, geez, I hope not. I've actually been laid off from my real job, and
you're laid off.
Oh yeah. I my real job is working at a fancy country club, and I already don't work in the winter, so I've been off for a couple months. And ironically enough, the state of Michigan closed all restaurants and places of business like that 2 days before I was supposed to go back to work for the season.
Yeah, man, see, that's the thing I'm talking about. This is millions of people, not across the country, per state, right? Millions per state are out of work.
Right. I've already been off for a couple of months. If it's only 2 weeks, if we go, because right now the country clubs closed for the next 2 weeks while they see what happens. If I can go back to work, then I mean that's going to suck, and I lost a lot of money, but I'll be okay. If I don't go back to work by April 1st, things get grim pretty quick.
Yeah, and that's the thing is people, there's a lot of people on spring break vacations and all that sort of stuff, and I've got 3 daughters. I had to get them back, man. I couldn't take a chance, considering the people that I was talking to, from politicians, economists, military guys, intel guys. All of them were. When I told them what my plight was, where my kids were spread out at, a 6-year-old with grandma, my oldest with my wife on the west coast of Florida, and my 15-year-old in the woodlands outside of Houston with her godparents. They said, you need to get your kids back to Iowa, dude. You need to get that shit rounded up and get them back, because this, one politician told me this was Wednesday. Today is what, Saturday?
Yep.
One politician called me on Wednesday and said, just got out of meetings and talking to Homeland Security people, and other politicians and financial sector people. He was very clear. He said this thing takes a very grave turn within 72 hours. So get your kids home, man.
Oh yeah, I can totally understand that. My wife's panic stricken because she has a daughter in Ohio, which is normally a reason to panic, anyways. But and she's got family. You know, her parents live in Florida. I'm over here in Michigan, and obviously there's nothing we can do to help them right now.
Yeah,
if things go bad, things just go bad. I mean, they're on the other side of the country.
Well, and people don't understand that. You know, the fear of getting sick. Look, that's understandable. You know, people are afraid of that, but you know where the real fear is. I don't fear the coronavirus. I fear the people that fear the coronavirus. I fear the people that are already panicking and taking 2 shopping carts full of toilet paper and losing their minds. Because
right. And I'll be honest with you, I feel kind of bad complaining about being off work a couple of weeks after being off work, laid off for a while, because this thing's having permanent effects on people's lives that some people don't think about. I was talking with my boss, and things like college graduation was canceled. His son's baseball season, he just got a scholarship to go to school to play baseball. His entire season's all fucked up now. Once in a lifetime events are getting fucked up on a daily basis because of this.
Right. And it goes all across, all demographics, all jobs, all, and you wonder, see, that's the thing is, how long do the banks stay open? They're handling cash. They say that physical currency is certainly aiding in the spread of coronavirus. Is this whole thing just one of the reasons, or one of the reasons that they're doing this, not just a reset on the economy? Is it to get rid of physical cash and go digital so that they can track your ass then, right? You can't have an all cash business at that point. You can't buy things for cash. Is it mandatory vaccines all of a sudden, where a lot of people do not want vaccines for their kids, for themselves, because they're aware and have done research on the effects of it. They know that the vaccine court, which protects the pharmaceutical companies and the taxpayers, have paid out $4 billion in settlements. Not the pharmaceutical companies, but the taxpayers themselves are the ones that have to foot the bill for the damage that the vaccines are doing to people. So, there's a lot of reasons that this could be going on, or all the above. You know what I'm saying? So it's people can call me a nut, but from what I'm seeing and what I'm hearing from people that are very legitimate pillars of society in the know, there's a lot of darkness attached to this. So I don't know, man. I mean, even the guys that got on here who follow Q, Q's saying that all of this stuff is they're scooping up a lot of elites that have done treasonous shit and even pedophilia to kids and all this other stuff. I don't buy that 100%. I certainly don't. But I do know that a lot of mafioso, over 300 mafia members, were arrested in Italy. I know that over 250 Mexican cartel members were arrested in the United States, and they just executed another huge arrest. And they were talking about scooping up a lot of Catholic priests. I know that one Catholic priest, in fact, because I have a relative who works for the Catholic Church, knows that actually a couple Catholic priests from my area have been scooped up right now. So some of that stuff could be true. And if it is, awesome.
Yeah, wouldn't that be a nice change of pace, huh?
Yeah, and if people want to go on and look at Madonna's Twitter page, that woman's losing her shit right now.
That woman's been losing her shit for years. She's from where I'm from. And she won't even admit the fact that she's from the same state that I'm from, much less the fact that she grew up like 3 miles from where I'm sitting right now. Right. Her and a fake fucking accent.
Somebody's saying Oprah's still missing. Well, I don't know whether Oprah's getting scooped up, but she certainly was close with Weinstein, wasn't she, boys?
Oh, God, isn't that a man? You know who I feel bad for in all this mess? Kevin Smith. I'm sure you're aware of who he is. He's a podcaster, director, writer, all that good stuff. And he got his start through Weinstein. And he was horrified to hear about all this. If there's anybody in Hollywood that's not associated with that entire thing, I believe it's Kevin Smith, being the biggest sweetheart in the world. But man, did that go hard for him. It's like for days and days and days. Whenever you saw him, it looked like he just wanted to cry.
Yeah, and he probably didn't know anything about it because Weinstein wasn't pulling his dick out in front of him.
Right. He might have been the only person in Hollywood who didn't get to where he was by sucking dick.
Well, that's nice of you to say about your friend.
Now, on the other hand, I'm sure he doesn't give this advice anymore, but back in the day, if you asked him how to get ahead in Hollywood, he'd say, well, what you got to do is stroke the shaft and cup the balls.
Man, and it's funny, but it's not, right? At the same time.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, I don't think he tells that joke anymore.
Yeah, probably that joke went into the trash heap with a few others, but
Right.
yeah, no, it's so I feel bad for a lot of the athletes. I feel bad for the LFA. They were really building up a lot of steam on UFC Fight Pass. UFC Fight Pass has been great to LFA, been great to Ron Crook and myself and the crew from Access TV. We were, that's one thing I will say about Ed and Sven and the whole LFA crew. When Access suddenly just decided to just get rid of everybody, everybody was shocked, of course. And
was there ever any reasoning given for that, or was it just like, hey, there's the door?
Well, Anthem bought them, and Anthem does everything on the cheap, apparently. So we were too expensive, and I think all the commentary that they have now on Combates is all done in studio. Max Bretos and I forget the girl that is his sidekick, the color commentary. But Max Bretos, I worked with him a little bit at ESPN when I was there. Great guy, love the guy. So good for him. But it just they're just saving a lot of money basically. But when they gave everybody the axe and walking papers, it was very unfortunate. Everybody was very shocked and worried, of course. And Ed Suarez and Sven at LFA said, we're going to do our damnedest to keep the band together. And they kept their word, man. They're men of their word. They did. And it's a great organization. They put on, I've been around MMA for a long time, and week in and week out, they have been able to put on some of the best cards that I've ever seen, without a doubt. And I'm talking every show, there are great fights. Mark Bieri, who's the matchmaker, does an incredible job matching people up equally so that we get incredible fights. And look, that makes my job easy as a commentator, right? When you've got boring fights, which when Michael Chiavello and I worked together, we had a few shows that were not LFA shows where they were boring, and Michael and I had to basically go into the comedy routine, man. We had to start making people laugh and just having a good time with it.
Yeah, and it's interesting that they were able to do that. I mean, it still amazes me that, it costs too much money. Well, I don't know. I'm sorry, that bothers me. Good quality people cost money. That's just how it is.
Right. Yeah, and that's it's. People think going digital and doing a lot of this other stuff too should cost less as far as hiring people and all that sort of stuff. And the one thing I will say is that UFC Fight Pass is doing a great job putting together and compiling a massive amount of material, man. I mean, content is king, right? And they are kicking ass at it. So,
I've been fans of them ever since they started doing Invictia, which I'm sure I just said wrong.
Right.
Yeah, I might be in the minority, but I'm a big fan of women's MMA.
I don't think I've ever seen a shitty ladies fight, and that's the one thing about women. When guys get tired, they'll let you know, bro. They'll let you know. They'll bend over, put their hands on their knees, and start sucking wind. Women get tired, they just start fighting harder. They just get more pissed off.
Yeah, it reminds me more of the early days of MMA, to be honest with you. When you see them fight, you get just more exciting fights in a lot of cases. I realize that people want knockouts, and you don't see a lot of that in women's MMA rather. But I just love watching them fight. They just go at it. Yeah,
no, it's like just throwing two buzzsaws at each other, and they just get after it. And the technique just continues to get better. The athleticism gets better. And that's one thing that, again, the LFA has done a great job. They have people fighting who look the way they're supposed to look. They fight the way they're supposed to fight. They move the way they're supposed to move. And that what I've always called or coined aesthetically pleasing combat sports. You know what I mean? And that's really important because people that are trained wrong on fundamentals or not conditioned correctly, which there are a lot of them out there because unfortunately there are a lot of coaches that don't know what the hell they're doing. I have a real tough time watching that sort of thing. There was one kid who fought on one of our cards a couple of years back, who had kind of walked through several opponents in stand-up fights. They fought, or he fought a couple strikers, and he's got very good striking, but found out real quick that his ground game was not very strong, and his corner was basically saying the whole time the kid was mounted, taking elbows for 3 rounds, and I was wondering why the fight wasn't stopped numerous times, but his cornermen were literally saying, "We love you, bro. You can do this, bro. We love you, bro." And that's all they said for 3 rounds while this kid took elbows and punches to the head. And I said, I'm maybe overly critical at times, but I expect people to be highly trained so that they don't get hurt, get killed, whatever, and get butchered in the cage. But, I was critical of those guys. I said, his mom and his girlfriend are here to tell him that they love him, not you. You're here to tell him how to get the fuck out of the mount position and survive this stuff. And that's something that they didn't do. And when he fought again on one of our cards and we were interviewing him after weigh-ins, you can just say his cornermen were not real. They weren't smiling at me. Let's put it that way.
Oh, you were vocal about this, apparently.
Oh, live on air. I chew their asses out.
Right on. Well, it's interesting. Obviously, you're an amazing trainer and coach. I'm going to tap into that for a second here. As a middle-aged, tall, skinny guy who probably should know more about fighting than I do for self-defense, what would you have me look into? Specifically, I'm like 6'7" and weigh like 190.
For self-defense?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I would say, to be honest with you, Muay Thai and BJJ, definitely.
Yeah, it's a combination of the two.
At 6'7", 190, I would, oh my God, I put the fear of God in people with your knees being able to go as high as they can. You rip people's heads off. And hacking elbows from a 6'7" guy coming down on them. That's terrifying. You're probably pretty agile, aren't you? You play basketball and stuff?
No. I'm probably not agile at all. Would be the classification.
Didn't even play basketball?
No, I'm blind in one eye, so I don't have any shot ability.
Oh, I see what you. Okay. So yeah, BJJ and Muay Thai, man. BJJ and Muay Thai, absolutely. You put those two together, and you'd be wrecking some people. Get a heavy bag, order a banana bag and some wraps and gloves, and you can watch all kinds of training videos on YouTube and learn how to do a lot of stuff.
Interesting. I'd heard the jiu-jitsu advice before, but I never had heard anyone mention Muay Thai as something I should be into. Yeah.
So somebody said, obviously Pat's not aware of Jay's disability. So I have no clue.
I'm very clumsy, and it's well documented on the OG.
Well, I tell you what, there is no better way to get coordination than to do Muay Thai and BJJ. And, this is the way I would put it. I've seen it turn kids who were, 5 years old and didn't know their left from their right, and take them in a year or two and make them kids that are going out for sports and kicking ass.
Right. Yeah, there you go. Someone just said Tim Sylvia is a prime example. He's actually one of my MMA heroes, being a tall person as well. I always rooted for him. Uh-oh, it looks like we might have lost him.
We may have.
Yeah, it looks like we lost him. All right. Well, if you get a chance to call back. Oh, there he is. He's back. Here he comes.
You got me?
Whoopsie.
You got me?
Yeah, we got you, sir.
Okay. Yeah, somehow I got cut out. But no, it'll give you coordination. And what I also say, have you ridden the motorcycle, Jay?
No, I'm actually terrified of motorcycles. My stepdad was killed on one.
Okay. So I would say this, when you're riding a motorcycle, you've got the throttle in your right hand. You've also got, the front brake in your right hand, the lever for the front brake. Your left hand, you've got the clutch. Your left foot, you've got the shifter for the gears. On your right foot, you got the rear brake. So you got to know what all your limbs are doing at any given time, right? And there's a little bit of coordination involved in riding a motorcycle, although I believe that you would learn how to ride a motorcycle quite well if given the instructions how to do it. So that's kind of the way I explain it to people is anybody can learn how to do it. If they keep working at it, they're going to get good at it. And that's what I would tell you. And I think that it's a great way to get in great shape too, because it's stimulating your brain at the same time, where instead of getting on a treadmill or lifting weights, which are great, but a lot of people drop off and get bored doing that. You got to understand that people learning, when you're learning and breathing hard and getting in shape, that's the full package that you need, and obviously learning a lifestyle that could protect you and your family someday. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, I would say I'm going to rush right out and take a class, but maybe not right now.
Yeah. So, but you can order a heavy bag stand, and get your gloves and your hand wraps and get after it, bro. Get after it. Yeah. So
it sounds like it'd be fun. I'm always trying to stay in shape. I lift weights and do yoga and stuff like that. But I think it'll be a fun time. All right, Ryan, you got anything else you want to ask this gentleman?
Yeah, absolutely. If we have the time here. So I think you kind of touched on some of the stuff going on with LFA. Obviously, your fight coming up, probably moving. When I think of this, this always seemed not always seems, because it only just happened, but this seemed like the time for mixed martial arts to kind of go mainstream. I know we've kind of been there, but to think about all of the sports that are out there, right? I don't think you're going to find anything with the excitement that could actually take place with some of these restrictions that are out there. So I don't know if you had any thoughts about, the UFC, not finding replacements for some of these fights and really the fighters in general, right? Because they're not making any money just sitting at home.
Right. Well, and look, there's going to be an awful lot of people that are going to get pay-per-views right now. If somebody were to, I can tell you that I'm sure that every MMA organization who is on any kind of televised platform is looking at figuring out how to get a warehouse and put together fights in a warehouse where they just you bring in and you film it and you commentate it just as you would if there was a crowd there. There's just no crowd there, and give people at home some entertainment.
To me, that sounds awesome. I'm sorry, just having the two fighters in an empty building. I was always a big fan of the Ultimate Fighter, watching those fights where you could hear the coaches yelling back and forth and such.
Absolutely, and God, it's cool, and they've kind of made it. I think the athletic commissions frown on it now; they'll warn you for it and things like that. But whenever we were cornering, we were yelling. Most of the time, we were yelling at the other fighter. We were distracting the other fighter and screwing him up and messing with him. Like when Jens fought Dennis Hallman, after Hallman had beat Hughes twice, he dropped in weight and wanted to take Jens' title. And excuse me, that entire fight, we yelled at Hallman he continued to try and pull guard and get Jens to the ground, and Jens was beating him up, standing up, and he couldn't take Jens down because Jens was a real good wrestler. And we badgered Hallman so much that he was laying on his back after trying to pull guard again, and Jens was standing above him. It was third round, like a minute or last round, 1 minute left. And Hallman looks over at us and flips us off and tells us to fuck off. And we start laughing our asses off. And the fight finished, and we were leaving, walking Jens back, and Bernard Hopkins was right behind us. It was me, Hughes, Horn, and I can't remember one other person was cornering with us. And Bernard Hopkins stops us and he goes, "Dude, you guys are like a pack of jackals." He goes, "I've never seen a corner do that to another fighter," and that was part of the fun of it, the mind game, right? And messing with them, and that was all. We always made sure to, if you can, make sure that the fight takes place over by us, so we can mess with that guy. We wouldn't yell specific instructions a lot of times to our guys because the other guy can hear, right? Our guys knew what to do, so. that was the fun of it. And I think that should still exist. I think athletic commissions, why the hell would you have, politically correct cornering in a sport where people are getting wrecked? You know what I mean?
Right, exactly. I mean, I can see you might not want to have some of that stuff go on the air, but as far as like in the arena, why would you?
Oh, I think it should be on the air. I think that the crowd should hear it and understand the seriousness of what's going on, right?
Right. Well, yeah. On the other hand, it's not like it's a kid's sport, so you do have that.
Yeah, I mean, the athletes are in there; they're playing for keeps, man. At that level, the boys are playing for keeps. And
you guys want to take a caller here?
Sure.
All right. 1 second.
Hey, Mr. Pat Miletich. Hey, it's Marinko. How are you?
Marinko, how you doing, buddy?
Good. Listen, brother, first off, we want to thank you for calling in. We didn't tell anybody. This is kind of a surprise for everybody. So first off, thank you, and hopefully we could do this again in the future.
Yeah, man. Yeah, thank you for the invite. I enjoyed this.
Okay, right. So I have a question for you, actually. So the coronavirus thing, what do you think is going to be the outcome, number one? And I guess with that saying, what's going to be learned? You know what I'm saying? Like, what's your take from the people you've talked to? I know the conspiracy farm, you have a lot of experts that call in, etc. So that, and as well, would you happen to tell us, because I've heard the story from you personally over 10 years ago, the Lee Murray Tito story, if you're up for it.
Oh, okay. I'll try and be quick on the coronavirus outcome. I that's the thing is, and you don't have to again. Yeah. Yeah, no, I'll do my best to I think that it's, is it mandatory vaccines? Look, this is just one coronavirus of many, or one pandemic of many. The next pandemic rolls around, are they going to shut the entire global economy down again, and make millions of people homeless and people starving? I mean, is this mandatory vaccines for you to even be able to go back to work and your kids to go back to school, which they've already done in California and a couple other places? Is it digital currency so they can track us and control us? There's a lot of stuff with this that's pretty up in the air. It really is. It's up in the air. I again don't subscribe to necessarily any one outcome, but I know it's all possible given that I've researched this stuff for a lot of years and done shows on it. But as far as Lee Murray, I trained him. He was coming over to the United States and training with us. And UFC in London, the first UFC in London, when Matt Hughes had the rematch with Carlos Newton, he obviously finished Carlos in that fight. And then the UFC loaded up they said, be ready. It would take you back to the hotel. Everybody get showered, get cleaned up. We're going to load up 2 big buses full of fighters, cornermen, whoever wants to go. And we're going to haul you down to a nightclub in downtown London. And we're going to give you the whole back room of this place. And it's free food, free hors d'oeuvres, free drinks, whatever you want. So everybody's, drinking, having a good time. And all of a sudden at like 5 in the morning, whatever it was, they said, all right, everybody out. So a couple hundred people pour out into the alley behind this nightclub. And one of Tito's buddies, who I got along with really well with Tito and all of his guys back then, he jumped on my back and kind of acted like he was choking. I could feel he wasn't choking me or didn't have bad intentions because he wasn't squeezing the choke. He was just goofing around. His name was Bo. He's a real nice guy. And I felt horrible about what happened to him that night. But one of my fighters, Tony Fricklin, ripped Bo off my back, and Bo turned around and they were facing toward each other. And Tony goes, what the fuck are you trying to do to my coach? Because Tony, thought he was trying to choke me. So Bo started to lip back to him, and because Tony pretty forcefully ripped him off my back. And at that point, one of Lee Murray's buddies, Paul, big dude from London, rifled poor Bo with a right hand and launched him out into the road, and his arm flew out in the road, and then I think a cab ran over his arm, and then the entire alley just exploded. It was like a stick of dynamite went off, and fights broke out everywhere between the guys from England and Tito's camp. And Tony and I were not involved in any throwing of any punches, anything like that. I saw Chuck Liddell against the alley wall, defending himself. He was dropping people left and right, doing a great job of defending himself. And I've always gotten along with Chuck great also. And but Tito went after Lee. Tito ran right past me, taking his coat off, going after Lee, and Lee was backing up, taking his coat off. And as soon as their coats literally hit the ground at the same time, Tito threw a combo at Lee. Lee ducked out of the way of every single one of them, and then returned fire and hit Tito with every single punch he threw and dropped Tito on his face. And as soon as Tito hit the ground, Lee had steel-toed boots on at the time and started kicking Tito in the head. So I grabbed Lee and I pushed him away and I said, Lee, stop, just get out of here. Because I got along with both of them. Obviously, I trained one of them and I got along with Tito at the time. So I stopped it and I said, get out of here. And so he goes, all right, Pat, I'll see you later, and took off. Tito woke up eventually, confused about what was going on. And then when he got back, apparently he told Dana that my camp and all the English guys all jumped him, and we beat him up, and that's why he got beat up, and that's why everybody got beat up. It was all the guys from my camp and the London fighters doing that to him. And so, Dana called me up and I told him, I said, listen, dude, that's not the truth. That's not the truth at all. And then Dana called me up, a week later and said, they're mailing me the surveillance video of that entire alley fight, and I'm going to watch it and see what you guys were responsible for and everything else. And I go, good, send me a copy of it, because you're going to see that we didn't do shit. And no matter what I said, it didn't matter. Tony Fricklin lost his UFC contract because of it, and he didn't do anything. And it was very unfortunate. And that was kind of the start of the divide between Dana and I that lasted for over a decade. There were some other things that happened between us, unfortunately. And I wish things would have gone differently, because, it really, I think it undoubtedly cost me a massive amount of money over the years having a feud with him. And, it got to the point where I wasn't even allowed to be anywhere near Dana. His bodyguards were watching me like hawks, thinking I was going to beat him up or something. So it was just all very unfortunate.
And why do you think Tito did that? Do you think it's a case of remember it differently than everybody else because he was knocked the fuck out, or did he just lie because he wanted to cover getting his ass beat?
Yeah, he was covering getting his ass beat is what it was. Pretty
much.
Yeah,
dress shoes on, did he not?
What's that?
I thought the rumor was that he said that he had dress shoes on or whatever. That's why he fell. Yeah, because Pat, you told him the story. I know. It's not that.
He had dress shoes on, but dress shoes didn't cause him to go to sleep.
No, I know that. Yeah. Hey, listen, brother. Thanks again. Hopefully, we could do this in the future. We do appreciate from the OG for you calling in, and I just wanted to thank you from the bottom of my heart, man.
Hey, thank you, brother. Hope all's good up there, man. Stay safe.
All right, you too, man.
All right, brother.
Excellent. All right. Well, do you guys have any other questions for this gentleman? Pat, do you have anything else that you want to cover before we get out of here? Yeah.
Just people can find me on my podcast, the Conspiracy Farm. They can go to theconspiracyfarm.com. All of our episodes are there. YouTube has suppressed our numbers and demonetized us because we've been telling the truth for a long time, and they don't like the truth. And but tonight we've been doing podcasts every night. We had Chris Tanto-Peranto on last night. He was the gentleman that was the subject matter for the movie 13 Hours. He's the author of the book 13 Hours, from the attack in Benghazi, Libya. He was a CIA contractor who was one of the guys that had to defend that compound that Ambassador Stevens and his assistant died. Ty Woods and another Navy SEAL died in that. They were CIA contractors also, but I mean, it was just a few guys fighting off an entire militia. But he confirmed when people called me a tinfoil hat wearing fool for a long time when I said that we've done the tracking, we've done the research, we've had the guests on that know, we've seen the documentation of, our government and other governments were paying for and arming ISIS and al-Nusra in Syria to overthrow al-Assad over there. And they were running weapons through. One place was obviously Benghazi, Libya, and whether it was to cover tracks or whatever it was, that militia attacked Ambassador Stevens to get rid of him. And Chris Caranto confirmed that on a show several months ago when we had him on, and said absolutely. He goes, we were 100% running weapons to ISIS and al-Nusra through there. So that's why the big backlash against Hillary Clinton. That's probably why she didn't win the election, to be honest with you, because everybody knew she was responsible for some really bad shit. And but tonight we're going to have Sonny Puzikas on. Sonny Puzikas is former Russian Spetsnaz, a terrorist hunter, and he was present in Russia when the old Soviet Union fell. He was a Special Forces Spetsnaz operator when all that stuff went down, and he ended up coming to the United States. And he trains a lot of people over here now. He's a very, very bright guy. He's seen the collapse of nations. He's been in some very, very hairy situations in his life. He's a complete badass and very smart. And so he's going to give us a breakdown of what he thinks is going on here in this country and globally with the pandemic and the monetary system and everything else. And so it's going to be a very good show tonight. It's going to be very, very good education for everybody, including myself, to listen to a guy with that kind of expertise and experience. So it's going to be good. And I'm going to do a Facebook Live while we're recording the show on Skype. But we've had him on before, and he's a great guest. He's a lot of fun to talk to because he doesn't beat around the bush at all, man. He's comes from a very hard part of the world and been through a lot of nasty shit. So it's going to be a very, very good show.
Excellent. Well, I'll have to definitely listen. All right. Well, I think we're all done here. Pat, I really want to thank you for coming on our show. It was definitely a big boost for our second episode to have a legend like you on here.
I appreciate it, guys. Thank you for having me on, man. And I'll come on whenever you guys need, and we'll have some fun. And you get caught up on conspiracies and geopolitical policy and domestic policy. So the next time we talk, you know what the hell's going on.
I will do so, sir. All right. Until next time, we will be on tomorrow at 6 p.m. So be sure to join us again, folks. Until then, I'm Passive J, and that's Ryan. And this was The Other Ground Live.